Do you regret ever getting involved in...
I didn't have a choice. It got bad when I was about 15 years old because when I did MTV Cribs, the day that I had to go show off that house, my mom and my dad told me, we're getting a divorce, but you still have to go do this. I had to go show off all the stuff my whole life that was going to be taken away from me.
The one factor related to him being a danger to the community. The other factor being how he would potentially obstruct witnesses. Now, critical in the prosecutor's arguments at those previous hearings was the fact that there's this tape that everyone has seen. And they said, prosecutors did, that tape was in the context of a freak-off. It was in the context of sex trafficking.
What if Aaron Carter didn't die the way we were told? What if the pop star who spent years warning the public about powerful people trying to silence him was actually sitting on something explosive? Something that could tear down one of the most untouchable figures in music? In a twist no one saw coming, federal prosecutors are now referencing recordings allegedly made by Carter before his death. Recordings that name Sean Diddy Combs in connection to disturbing Epstein-style freak-off events.
The rumors are that Diddy was running some kind of Epstein-type deal where he was filming everybody. If some of the accusations are true, that kind of covers things. When folks vanish.
These tapes weren't just angry rants. They were warnings. And now, with the trial underway and federal raids shaking Diddy's world, people are asking the question no one wanted to ask back in 2022. Did Aaron Carter die because he knew too much?
Partied with Diddy. It's hard for me to truly get invested in what's happening to Liam Payne right now because I haven't gotten over what happened to Nick. Nick's brother, Aaron Carter.
Right.
A lot of people keep forgetting Aaron Carter was begging for help, begging for independent financing, begging for security.
Week of the testimony in the sex trial against Sean Combs ended with a former member of one of Combs' musical groups on the witness stand. Dawn Richard says that she saw Combs attack Cassie Ventura in 2009. Richard is suing Combs in federal court, accusing him of sexual assault and battery. She'll be back on the witness stand on Monday. Richard's civil lawsuit is still pending.
People are watching. They need to remember trials involve humans, and humans are messy. So you don't have any purity tests in terms of your witness is on the stand and has never done anything wrong, or your defendant is on the stand and has never done anything right. There's a lot going on both sides, and it really is up to the jury to ferret that out as long as they are given the right facts and the proper instructions from the...
It started as a rumor. Whispers that Aaron Carter had been recording conversations, saving files, keeping receipts. Most people brushed it off. After all, Aaron had always lived in the spotlight, often sharing too much, too fast. But behind the chaotic Instagram lives and public breakdowns, there was something more serious brewing. According to court filings and leaked sources, Carter had compiled audio and video files implicating Diddy in events that weren't just wild, they were criminal. These so-called freak-off parties allegedly involved non-consensual acts, drugs, hidden surveillance, and something even darker, blackmail. The tapes, reportedly passed to a trusted friend before his death, became part of a federal case that caught even Diddy's high-powered legal team off guard. Prosecutors described the contents as devastating, and insiders say it left the defense scrambling to control the narrative. But these recordings weren't just shocking. They were a clear sign that Aaron knew the kind of secrets people don't live long after sharing.
Chloe, we know Cassie Ventura's former best friend is also testifying today. What has she said so far?
So her name is Carrie Gordon, and when Cassie Ventura was on the stand last week, she talked a lot about this friend of hers that witnessed a lot of the abuse, and that this was someone that she confided in. And Miss Gordon, she's already taken the stand for a few hours. Right now, they're on a lunch break, and she's expected to return this afternoon. And she said, look, I don't really even want to be here. I was given a subpoena. I'm forced to be here to testify. I haven't spoken to Combs or Miss Ventura since 2018, and that's because Combs assaulted
properties associated with him. We saw the feds descend on those properties. We saw on aerial footage federal agents both here in the Los Angeles area as well as in Miami at those residences. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, their what's called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, gave CNN a statement. I'll read you part of that when asked about what this activity is. They say that earlier today, HSI New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners.
When news broke that Aaron Carter was found dead in his bathtub, the headline was simple: accidental drowning. But fans, and even investigators, started noticing details that didn't add up. Most striking, the autopsy revealed there was no water in his lungs. That alone shattered the initial story. It didn't help that Aaron had publicly said he feared for his life just weeks before, claiming he was being followed, watched, and targeted by powerful people in the industry.
On my Twitter, and I see people saying, "You look like you have AIDS, you should go die." I don't understand how I dedicated 22 years of my life to my fans, and now they turn on.
He wasn't vague. He said names, hinted at what he had, and told fans that if anything happened to him, it wouldn't be an accident. Just days before his death, Aaron reportedly contacted a journalist with intentions to expose everything he knew. He never got the chance. Was it drugs, a tragic relapse? Or did someone make sure he stayed quiet before the tapes could go public?
Aaron Carter was found dead in a bathtub in his home in Los Angeles last November. Since that time, TMZ has reported the LA County coroner did not find water in his lungs, meaning he didn't drown. Carter's mother, Jane Schneck, posted photos on Facebook that show the bathroom where her son was found. She wrote on Facebook, "Because of my son's mental illness and prescription drug issues, they, the cops, just wanted it to be something easy that they didn't have the time or inclination to address." Schneck wants a more thorough investigation. She wrote that her son was receiving threats from many people, and she believes there were people out there who wanted to harm him.
They haven't come back with toxicology results yet. So at this point, and as you know, medical examiners and coroners are, I don't want to use the term notorious, but it takes time for these things to be fully realized because these tests take time. You don't, in a death investigation, you don't want things hurried up. And it seems as though some parties that are involved in this case want it sped up. And that's the most dangerous thing.
Either way, his sudden death has become more than a sad celebrity story. It's now a critical piece of a federal case. Not long after Aaron's tapes began circulating behind the scenes, federal agents made their move. In a coordinated operation involving the FBI, IRS, and Homeland Security, Diddy's homes in both Miami and Los Angeles were raided.
What the feds had collected, at least in part. We also learned the charges that Diddy faced: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And again, Diddy's pleaded not guilty and denies those allegations. But this indictment, this OG indictment, which by the way, there's been a couple of superseding ones, adding a couple charges here and there. Anyway, going back to the holy grail of it all, the original indictment, that's where we learned about what was collected, including all of that lube and baby oil. They said that there were controlled substances used, and this was specifically to allegedly keep the victims obedient and compliant. The feds also state that during these freak-off situations, recording devices were used. Now, sometimes the people involved in the freak-offs, allegedly, didn't know that they were being recorded. And then other times, Diddy and his team, allegedly, would use these recordings as revenge and say, hey, if you come forward and report this to anyone, we've got this really embarrassing video. Why would you do that? So that's an allegation too. The feds also say that IV fluids were used in all of this, specifically because the people involved in the freak-offs had to recover from physical exertion and drug.
It wasn't just a search, it was a takedown. Agents seized hard drives, surveillance equipment, and something that sent shockwaves through the courtroom, a confidential folder labeled The Vault. According to leaked sources, the Vault isn't just a file, it's a collection. Allegedly, it contains years of footage from hidden cameras, names of high-profile attendees, and even documented NDAs used to silence victims. Some insiders say it holds the kind of evidence that could implicate not just Diddy, but a web of other powerful figures. While the full contents haven't been made public, prosecutors call it the centerpiece of their case. And if what's inside is even half as bad as rumored, this is just the beginning. Once the raids made headlines, the silence around Diddy's inner circle started to crack. First came Cassie Ventura, his former partner, who had previously filed a civil lawsuit that was quietly settled. But now, with federal protection and mounting evidence, her testimony returned with much more weight. Cassie described years of psychological abuse, control, and disturbing sexual encounters, some of which she claimed were filmed without her consent. Then came Carrie Morgan, a longtime friend and confidant, backing up Cassie's claims and adding her own chilling experiences. But it didn't stop with them. Former employees, hotel staff, and even drivers began to speak up. They described threats, hush money, and entire events coordinated to avoid detection, some even naming hotels that were complicit in the cover-ups. What they painted wasn't just the story of a manipulative celebrity, it was the picture of an organized system of coercion. For prosecutors, it was the human proof behind the data in the vault. For Diddy's team, it was a nightmare they couldn't cross-examine away. With headlines spiraling and witnesses stacking up, Diddy's legal team took a defensive stance that felt less like a strategy and more like damage control. In court, his attorneys pushed back hard, claiming that the entire case was built on twisted narratives and old grudges. They insisted that the so-called freak-off events were consensual, adult gatherings taken out of context. More than once, the defense accused prosecutors of launching a media-driven takedown, saying the raids, the leaks, and the headlines were choreographed to make Diddy look guilty before the trial even began. In a tense courtroom moment, one of Diddy's attorneys shouted that the evidence was theatrical and engineered for headlines, not justice. But while the legal team focused on optics, the prosecution kept stacking the receipts, hard drives, sworn testimonies, timestamps, and connections that were getting harder to ignore. The courtroom was turning into a war zone, not just over guilt or innocence, but over who controlled the truth. While the courtroom grew more intense by the day, something strange was happening outside. On social media, just as headlines swirled with allegations of blackmail, abuse, and federal raids, Diddy's daughters were seen posing in flawless prom photos, smiling and untouched by the chaos unraveling around their father. The contrast was jarring. To some, it looked like a normal family moment, but to others, it felt calculated, like an attempt to project control, innocence, and stability in the middle of a firestorm. Critics quickly called it image laundering, suggesting Diddy's team was using public appearances to soften the blow of courtroom accusations. Whether intentional or not, the message was clear. Diddy was still trying to control the narrative. But with each new piece of evidence and every tearful witness, the polished surface began to feel like a mask, one that was starting to slip. As more pieces of the case surfaced, the spotlight began shifting beyond Diddy. Some of the names whispered in connection to the tapes and the vault weren't random. They were artists, executives, and influencers who've been seen at the same parties, caught in the same photos, signed to the same labels. The allegations were no longer just about one man. They were pulling at the threads of a much bigger web. Prosecutors hinted at the possibility of a larger network, one that relied on silence, NDAs, and fear to keep everything buried. It all started to feel familiar. Just like the Epstein and Weinstein cases, there was the same pattern: power abused in private, victims ignored in public, and a wall of money protecting everything in between. The question now wasn't just, is Diddy guilty? It was, how deep does this go? And who else might be next? With every court session, every leaked file, and every brave testimony, the image of Sean Diddy Combs as an untouchable mogul is dissolving. What was once a carefully crafted legacy of success is now shadowed by claims of manipulation, abuse, and a chilling network of control. The tapes from Aaron Carter, once dismissed as paranoid ramblings, are now treated as evidence in one of the most high-stakes cases the music industry has ever seen. Federal agents have the vault, and the world is watching to see who else might be named. Meanwhile, fans who once danced to Diddy's hits are now asking a very different question. What if it was all built on silence and fear? This isn't just a fall from grace, it's a reckoning. And if the trial keeps unraveling the way it has, Diddy might not be the last giant to fall. Because when one secret gets exposed, it's never the only one. If this story shocked you, just wait. More names, more evidence, and more fallout could be coming any day now. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next chapter in this case could change everything. Do you think Aaron Carter was silenced? And if so, who's protecting the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, but keep it respectful. We're watching this unfold together, and your voice matters.